So I heard a conversation from a lady recently who was talking about a situation that she was struggling with at home. She was struggling with two of her children, and the way she described it was very interesting. She said, I wanted to blame someone. I wanted to blame someone. Do you know when you're just, there's something wrong, and there's a desire to maybe find a scapegoat, to pin it on someone, and then you can say, it's their fault. And somehow she found herself in a situation where she wanted to blame one of her children, as it happens, for this particular bad day that she was having. And when she saw some evidence that maybe it wasn't actually that child's fault, she said, but I knew what the right thing to do was. I knew what the right thing to do was. But she said, I didn't want to be holy. I wanted to be right. I didn't want to be holy. I didn't want to do the right thing. I wanted to be right. It's very interesting how we can be confronted with certain situations where if we dig a little, we might discover, my goodness, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe what I'm doing is wrong. Maybe I was actually fooling myself. So maybe with the best of intentions, maybe that course of action wasn't right or wasn't the most prudent thing to do. So maybe I was wrong. And in this situation, when we're faced with that, again, do I want to be right or do I want to be holy? Now we have to clarify some of the terms here. I was talking to a husband actually last year, and we were just talking about apologizing. And apologizing when you're wrong. And he said, yeah, absolutely. But he said that there's an interesting situation, an interesting phenomenon in marriage as well, where there are kind of three levels of apologizing. So one, you apologize when you're wrong. So I said something stupid, or I blamed someone, or I was angry, I lost my temper, I was irresponsible in some way. Okay, I made a mistake, I say sorry. Okay, first level of apologizing, and the easiest level, in a way. Because when you're actually wrong, it's a little easier to say you're sorry. But then he said there's a second level. The second level is when you meant well. So I tried to do the right thing, but maybe I did it in the wrong way. So, for example, I remember in our community, he should have known better. Well, it's easy for me to say as the unmarried priest. But this father, listening to his dear wife, who had complained all year that their Hoover was useless. The Hoover, this thing sucks up nothing, and it's ridiculous, and it's old, and it's noisy, and it's useless, right? For her birthday, he got her a new Hoover. Now, she didn't appreciate it. From a man's perspective, I completely understand where he was coming from, okay? He got her what she actually was asking for all year, but she was desperately offended. So in that situation, he had the right intention. I mean, he did a good thing. He got her what she wanted, and he solved the problem. From man's perspective, that's 10 out of 10. But when it comes to wedding anniversaries, it's not about the thing being useful. In fact, if anything, flowers are completely useless. But you're supposed to get them kind of because they're useless, because they're just a sign of affection, and then they die. And apparently that's a good thing. I mean, not the dying, but apparently just the fact that you get something that's useless is a good idea. You can see why I became a priest. So, flowers or chocolates then, have an expiry date or whatever, 2 weeks. But the point is, love is supposed to show itself in ways that are almost a little, wasteful. When you buy, the whole purpose of an engagement ring is that's supposed to have a diamond on it. Now, diamond and quartz, by the way, look exactly the same. But the point is, it's supposed to be diamond because it's more expensive, and it's an expression of how much you love the person. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but you get the point. Okay. So he bought her the Hoover. So his intention was good. But maybe went about it in the wrong way. So even there, he decided to say sorry multiple times. So even though he didn't do anything wrong per se, okay? And then this husband was describing to me, there's a third level of saying sorry. And that's when you didn't do anything wrong and your intention wasn't bad. What you did was just absolutely good, But for some reason, the other person was offended or hurt. And he said, even there, you say, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have these different levels of asking for forgiveness, of apologizing to the Lord. Do we want to be right, or do we want to be holy? So sometimes we have to forgive when we're right, even when we're right, and still say sorry. Why? Because you want to be holy. You want to be a good husband, you want to be a good wife, you want to be a good priest, good whatever it is. So even in those situations, we want to be holy. We choose holiness over us being right. You read today's gospel, like Jesus is not holding back here at all. That's another wonderful thing about Jesus, which I think is a little understated or isn't spoken about enough. Jesus didn't care what people thought about him. He cared about the truth. His wasn't a popularity contest. He wanted people to understand this correctly, he wants people to love him in the sense that he wants people to love the Father. He wants to draw all men unto him, right? He wants to draw all people to him, but not because he compromises with the truth and so becomes popular, by deceiving people or popular by charming people. He wants to be loved for who he is. So loved for the truth that he represents and the truth that he actually is. So he says here, "Alas for you scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, you who shut up the kingdom of heaven in men's faces, neither going in yourselves nor allowing others to go in who may want to." So he's telling, again, the priests of the day, you're not getting into heaven and you're actually stopping people from getting in there. And you're supposed to be like the leaders, the examples. People look up to you. "Alas for you scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, you who travel apparently over sea and land to make a single proselyte, so a convert. And when you have him, you make him twice as fit for hell as you are." Now that's a blunt statement. So the Lord goes on in that regard. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you're on the receiving end of that, so you're listening to the Lord saying, basically, you've done something wrong. You've gone down the wrong road. That question will probably cross your mind. Do I want to be right? So stick my heels in, and whatever the Lord said, look, what he's saying is negative towards me, and therefore it must be wrong, because I can't be wrong. If someone criticizes me, they must be wrong, because it's not possible that I could be wrong. That's called pride. That's just good old-fashioned pride. I can't be corrected. I'm above correction because I can't be wrong. Well, you can. You can. Unfortunately, you can. We all can. So in the Lord here, sometimes he was gentle with people, neither do I condemn you, but go and sin no more. He says to the lady caught in adultery, so she was guilty, but he's very gentle with her. These guys, on the other hand, he's very, very blunt with. Maybe that's the kind of language they needed to hear in order to realize that this is actually serious. This isn't a joke. The way you're heading is leading you to hell and probably others with you. Very, very strong words. So when you hear, do you want to be right or do you want to be holy? When the Lord speaks to us or through someone else to us, do I want to be right or do I want to be holy? If my primary concern here is I want to be right, that is pride. And it's subtle, isn't it? It's subtle, because sometimes when people they may criticize you, they may be wrong. Like that can happen too. Someone might, slate us, and they may be way off the mark. They may have completely misinterpreted what we were doing or what our intentions. They may have presumed to know our intentions, and they may have been way wrong. You only called into that sick person because you want to see what the inside of their house is like. Is that what you think? Where do you get that? You only take an interest in that person because you want a cut of the will. You want to get some money when they die. Where do you get that from? You may think that. You're wrong, but you may think that. So point is, not every criticism everyone says is true. But when it comes from someone like the Lord, who lives a virtuous life, someone who does actually care, and someone who gives us out of a place of love, advice or a recommendation, That's definitely worth taking on board. And kind of running it through that quick filter. Do you want to be right here, or do you want to be holy? In all of our lives, as priests, as married people, single people, we will have occasions to practice that. The Lord didn't come to earth to be popular. He came to earth to reveal the truth on many levels. The truth of who we are, so he reveals man to himself, and the truth of who he is, the way, the truth, and the life. Our Trinitarian God, he reveals the Father to us. So he didn't come to be popular, but he came to speak the truth. And at times, the truth isn't what we want to hear. Remember in seminary, we have a fairly international community. So there was an African guy in my year, and there were a few Americans and Germans and Swiss and the whole lot. So I was responsible for garden duty. So I had to put together a list of who was working outside. And normally, when we were on the list to work outside, because we had a limited amount of time and we had to actually get things done, as in like we had to dig holes and dig trenches so the plumbers could come and put in the watering system. So we had a deadline, So normally we would choose to do our adoration. We had optional adoration that we could sign up for at some point during the day. Normally we would do it in the afternoon so that we'd have a full morning to work outside. Okay, so this particular guy work should start at 9:30. He'd start getting dressed into his work clothes at 9:30. So he'd come out at 9:45 or 10 to 10. Then he'd do about 10 minutes work, and then he'd go in for an hour of adoration, come out at 11. Well, no, finish adoration at 11, go get a drink, come out at 11:15, and then maybe work for 45 minutes, and then take another break, and then, sure, look, it's getting warm now, might as well head in. Whereas some of the other guys would come out at 9:30 and they'd work straight until 12:30 and we'd get a load done. Okay, point being, I didn't put him on the list to work outside very often because there was no point. I'm not going to forbid a person from doing adoration in the morning, but look, you clearly don't want to work out there, so good, we'll give you a job you want to do. And lo and behold, then the day came where he exploded on me and said that I was racist, that I wasn't putting him outside because he was African. And I said, if you think I'm racist, you don't know what racism is. I said, I didn't put you outside because you don't like working outside. I couldn't care less what colour your skin is. I don't care. Right? I'm not racist. But if a job needs to be done, then it needs to be done by people who want to work. You clearly didn't. So, I'm not, it's not that I'm perfect, but do you want to be right or do you want to be holy? Because you can hide behind, you can pull the racism card all you want, but do you want to be right or do you want to be holy? Did you like working outside? Did you work outside when you were asked to? Or did you dodge work as much as you could? It's between you and the Lord at the end of the day. Do you want to be right or do you want to be holy? This question will come to all of us, probably often. So we ask the Lord that when those situations come, especially when we feel our ego, our pride rise up, Lord, that we can choose holiness, that we can choose you, that we can choose humility, that we can choose virtue. Amen.